We're going to have a look at Dirty Business from breakfast this morning, and this is our favourite. What's the name of the host again? Anna Burns Francis, because she's wearing her glitch top. You know, the glitch top that looks like, because of the stripes, looks like she's a Minecraft character glitching. You'll see. There's only one part I really want to play about this, because we have some receipts when it comes to this conversation, and that's what Christopher Luxon is going to do with the national government in their first 100 days on gangs in particular. What they're going to achieve, how they're going to achieve it, and who they absolutely refuse to work with. I bet you can guess who it is, Chewy, but we'll let the man himself tell us. So here's Anna Burns Francis in her glitch jersey, looking and speaking to Mr. Luxon on the first 100 days, what they're going to do with gangs.
Okay, what are you going to do about gangs in your first 100 days?
Yeah, well, look, we've been very clear in the election campaign and in the 18 months before that about gangs, and it's been good to see, for example, the police using some of the powers that have been recently passed in Opotiki in particular this week. And again, we want to make sure we get more of those tools to the police so they've got more powers to be able to do that.
So what
dispersal
powers made for the first 100 days?
To get going with the legislation that we promised around tackling gangs. And that
so just for clarity, so there's the glitch top. Just for clarity, the commitment is we'll start something. And I'm actually okay. I think those 100-day things are bloody stupid, but they made a big deal of their 100-day plan before they were elected, and now the payoff to the 100-day plan is we'll do something. We'll start something. That's our commitment.
To get going with the legislation that we promised around tackling gangs, and that means getting that up and running. So
you were quite specific in your 100-day plan.
Correct.
You were going to ban gang patches.
Correct.
Stop
Give dispersal powers, anti-consorting, make sure that firearm prohibition orders, and also an aggravating factor in sentencing.
How are you going to stop gang offenders from communicating with one another in the first 100 days?
Yeah, that's a good question, Because there's this new invention, Chewy, called cell phones. Have you ever heard of them?
I'm familiar.
No, they're quite new. And so they're going to stop somehow. They'll just make sure that, because only a few people have cell phones, they're very new technology. So I'm sure what they'll do is just make sure that gangs don't get their hands on cell phones to stop them communicating with one another. It's highly likely because no one's got cell phones yet. It'll be in the next few years. You mark my word,
They're notoriously hard to get.
Yeah, they are notoriously hard to get.
And we're going to start drafting that legislation, getting that legislation up and running in that first 100 days so that police can then operationalise that and move it forward. The law.
You're going to need the support of other parties to do that.
Sure.
If you are waiting until the special votes are in, you haven't got 100 days left.
Well, we'll have 100 days once our government's formed, and that's when we're going to get going. We're going to run Parliament right up until Christmas. We may start Parliament earlier in the new year as well, because that's actually what the rest of New Zealand does. And I think that's important given the agenda that we've got to get moving with. So we've got a lot to do.
How do you practically expect that enforcement to go when it comes to banning gang patches, for example?
Question.
Well, look, again, that's going to be up to the police. But I'll just say to you in Queensland...
Okay, so this is a really important point, I think, Joey. How are you going to do this? How are you going to legislate it? I don't know. We'll let the police handle that. So what happens, and we've got Chester Burrows, the late, great Chester Burrows, coming up shortly to share some of his words from trying to do this before. What happens if what they're promising is illegal? Like the right to assemble, or like the freedom of expression. What if what they're promising is illegal? Now, I'm not saying this is illegal. I'm saying, what if it is illegal? He's just been asked, okay, so this is your promise to ban gang patches. How are you going to do it? Nah, we'll leave that up to the police, Chewy.
People seem to forget as well that the Mugger Mob have lawyers, that they can afford lawyers. And they'll take the Crown to court over it. And they'll win. They'll win. It's so stupid. Like, okay, you can't wear gang patches. Okay, well, we'll wear something else to designate what gang we're in.
Maybe red or blue?
We're going to clean the warehouse out of red hoodies.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah.
Red jackets, red shoes. It doesn't need to be a patch.
Yeah.
It's any symbol. They could decide that the sign for being in our tough gang is a Dora the Explorer backpack, and everyone has one. It does not matter what it is. It's so dumb. It's so dumb.
Okay, we'll keep going with Mr. Luxon. We'll give him maybe he'll do some sort and he'll pull it off. He'll win it by the end of this conversation, Chewy. Maybe. What do you think? Maybe. We'll see.
Oh,
Land and in Western Australia, where these rules and laws have been passed and been very effective, actually passed by Labor premiers of those respective states, we've seen great success. And so, we'll leave that to police, but it's no different from how we ban.
If that's your rule that you want to bring in, you must
Sure.
have an expectation of how you think it would play
Sure.
out.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We'll leave it to police. And this is your idea. What are you going to do? I mean, literally, it's we want this to happen. We want you guys to sort it out. Imagine, this is the businessman, right? We run it like a business. What business has a CEO that goes, right, I want to make sales hit this point. I want this many sales. How are you going to do it? Well, we'll leave it up to them. That's not how business works. Yet the man who wants to run government like business is going, we want this done. I don't know. Let them sort it out. It makes no sense at all. And we've been saying this for 18 months, Whānau, and people haven't caught on to it. And the more we get into government, the more these guys get into government, I think the clearer you will see it. And the clearer you will see their promises from the election not pan out either because they can't get them through or they're not able to do them, in my opinion, Chewy.
3 years have I told
But
you
it's not
so,
different from-
starting now.
How we ban gang patches, for example, in courtrooms and schools or in hospitals today. It's the same thing, right? It's just an extension of that into public places. Dispersal powers, giving police the powers to break up gangs of intimidating behaviour, anti-consorting powers, and obviously firearm prohibition orders to go after illegal guns.
Have you spoken to Andrew Coster about these plans?
No, not personally.
Head of
no.
police. No.
Do you think you should?
Well, no, we're not yet a government. And so the point is that we have a situation in New Zealand where we now have to form a government. Once we form a government, that will be up and running.
Sound them out a bit, because these are plans that you want to bring in.
Yeah, look, I think we've been really clear over the campaign. We launched over 60 different.
So Anna Burns-Francis missed the obvious question here, unfortunately. These are plans you want to bring in. What if you can't? What if legally you can't do this? Then what? That's the obvious question here. What if Peter Costa, I think that's his name, says, no, we're not going to do that? Then what? Because if you're saying it's up to the police, that means the police can go, no, we don't think that's a good idea. Unless it's up to the government, then what are you going to do? I don't know. We'll leave it to the police. The police go, this is not possible or legal. Then what? These are these big promises that we'll have to see whether they can pan out or not.
It's just the mechanics of it, right? We've talked about this before. It's the bumper sticker. We're going to be tough on gangs. We're going to get rid of gang patches right here. But it doesn't go further about how. Are they going to ask police to physically take patches off gangs?
Yeah, go into funerals and do it, remember? To get a group and go into funerals and take them off.
Yeah, Kiwi Skirt's got it exactly right. None of that explains on how they are going to get rid of patches on streets. Are they going to issue fines? At what point is the illegal gang going, yeah, sure, I'll pay that fine. Who gives a shit? Fuck off. It's a bumper sticker with nothing behind it.
There's one more part of this interview I want us to get to, and that's also who they refuse to work with. And once again, National's big promises have backed them into a corner that even if they could get this through, maybe they can, it will be less effective by them ruling out talking to a particular group of people about gangs.
Policies, and I think if you're a CE of a government department, you'd be looking at those what we want to propose and what we're going to do.
Okay, we had Harry Tam on yesterday, and he talked about pro-social interventions, what else needs to be done. He said that he would consider meeting with you if you were willing to meet with him. Would you meet with Harry Tam?
No interest, really. My message really clearly is if you want to leave a gang, that's good. We encourage you to do that. Life for gang members is going to get harder under a national government. We've been really clear and upfront about that. Gangs are not good.
Really clear,
they want
really
all the
clear,
rights of
really
being
clear.
Kiwi, not
Fuck
prepared
off.
to take the responsibilities, and they peddle a lot of misery across this country in terms of the drug trade.
Do you believe in any pro-social interventions to stop people joining gangs in the first place?
Well, I do. I think there's a lot that we can do around social investment, which we've talked about. Getting to underlying causes and working on that around poverty issues, housing security
and
issues,
if Harry
education.
wanted to work with you on that, you wouldn't want to work with him?
No, I don't, because I actually want to say to people very clearly, gang life is not a good choice, and actually there's nothing good about gang life, in my view. So,
What the hell does that mean,
I know I'm
Pat?
talking bluntly about it,
Yeah.
but it's important because actually, when we look at the growth of gangs, we look at the growth of violent crime in this country, and we look at what's happening with meth and drugs. That's the reality of it.
So I guess that's kind of implying that every gang member is a bad person, right?
No, I'm just saying that
make bad choices?
gangs are not great. And
So how do you work out what those pro-social interventions are if you won't talk to them about what they think they need?
well, I think we all understand we've got a long ongoing program of making sure that we can actually, through our social investment model, make sure that we're actually helping families and vulnerable folk that might be attracted to that lifestyle with respect to poverty, around housing, around education, all those other options. And we've got to work much harder at that. And that's hard work, it's long-term work. We're going to continue to do that. But on top of that, we are also going to have tougher consequences for it. I'm going to send another message, which is to say, if you're a gang member, leave.
There you go. Now, sorry about that, Joe. I know you were trying to jump in there, but I just wanted to...
I've got so much.
Yeah, you can go, because what I just realised that I wanted to show people who Harry Tam is in case they're unaware, but you go first, my friend.
So this dude, business daddy, who has no experience in any of the areas that he's talking about. He's not experienced in law enforcement. He's not experienced in the social conditions that go into people either going into or leaving gangs. He knows none of these things. He's lived in another country for so long and has just parachuted back in here and decides he knows how to solve gangs, a problem that literally no one has been able to solve for 50 years. But he thinks he can by being a tough man with an idea and no practicality about how it works. But the question that was asked of him was, is he pro-social interventions to stop people joining gangs? Yes, absolutely. That's a good sounding thing, and I'm for the good sounding thing. Okay, if you could speak to Harry Tam about what would stop people joining gangs, would you want to talk to him? No, because Harry Tam is a gang man, and I am anti-gang man. So you want to make these things up on basically just no information at all. You won't listen to social agencies. You won't listen to people that have an experience of that life. You won't talk to people that work in that area of society because you've already written them off as bottom feeders. So you're going to fix this problem by not talking to anyone and just wibbly wobbly wavy your CEO corporate wand. I've magicked it all better now.
So I contacted Harry today to see if he'd come on and have a chat with us. So this is Harry Tam. For over 40 years, Harry has worked with Indigenous ethnic gangs and other hard-to-reach communities throughout the country and in the prisons. In 1990, Harry was awarded the 1990s Commemoration Medal for services to New Zealand. Harry also worked as a senior public servant for nearly 20 years, providing policy advice to the government on a range of portfolios, including youth, penal, policy, and criminal justice. So that's who Harry Tam is, right? This group here, H2R, let me just read this out to you. H2R, this is the group that he's one of the people for, our people. We are now entering the fourth generation of gang whānau, with youth gangs comprised predominantly of children of gang members on the same pathway to poor outcomes in health, education, employment, criminal offending and well-being. The current approach of suppression to reduce gang membership and gang violence is not working, and there is a lack of targeted policies to provide social or economic support for gangs. Our approach is premised on the need to penetrate, engage and mobilise marginalised communities. We believe that no one is hard to reach if we really want to reach them. It depends on whether we intend to reach out and whether we are prepared to do things differently. We draw on the principles of community mobilisation, initially used in the delivery of public health initiatives, which are designed to help communities build services and initiatives for themselves. We recognise that every community is unique, and we work with local leaders to develop solutions that address the issues that are important to them while drawing on their strengths and developing the capacity and capability to lead change for themselves. Now, Christopher Luxon doesn't want to have a bar of that person or this group because he promised in the election that he wouldn't do what Labour did and give money to the gangs. So he has now backed himself into a corner. He talks about local communities, helping local communities, getting into areas you can't get into. That's what this group is doing. That's who they are and what they're doing. But because he's made all this noise about Labour giving money to gangs and Labour working with gangs, will you meet with Harry Tam? No. But if you read what they're doing, it's exactly what you guys are trying to do. No, not my problem.
Bad gang man.
Yeah.
Me, anti-bad gang man.
So
talk to bad game
I
man.
also think as a business person who wants outcomes, shouldn't you therefore engage with the best, most likely way to get those outcomes? And I would think, look, I don't know Harry Tam, so I'm not kind of speaking on behalf of him, but I would think people in the kind of position who have lived the kind of life that Harry Tam has lived would be probably a better way through to that end goal that you want than some analyst in wins who's had no real experience in that world. Or let's be honest, because it's Mr. Luxon, some Christian organisation in Whakatane who says they can do it better without the sweary words. So I just think that there's all these mixed messages. Luxon is already talking about running this country like a business. I am paraphrasing. He might not have specifically said that, but everything he's doing is like that. Yet I would think the best way to get the outcome you want is by engaging with people like Harry Tam, who he refuses to engage with. Because why? Because he's criticised Labour for engaging with people like Harry Tam. So now he can't do it, even if it was a good idea, Chewy.
Yeah. So he's going to go off. He's going to point the police at it. And that's his option. Nothing else.
So what if the police
even
say
if you
Harry
want to
Tam?
write the gangs off as an absolute mortal enemy of the country,
Yep.
there's a really important thing when you go into battle against someone is know your fucking enemy.
Yeah.
I have zero confidence that Luxon knows what goes into what has created and what continues to make gangs a viable option for people. That's the thing. A lot of these guys will know that's a tough life. So
Yeah.
they can look around and see that. Show people a better way out. These guys have kids that they care about as well.
Here's a really big question. So what if Luxon gets stuck in one of his dilemmas where the police go, oh, we'd really like to engage with Harry Tam? Then what does he do? Then does his head explode? Like, what if the police suggest the best way to do this is to engage with the kinds of groups you don't want to engage with, Mr. Luxon? Then what? I mean, I know we don't know if that's going to happen or not, but I would think the police officer on the ground might see these guys doing this work in the community already and say this is a good place to start putting some more effort. Then what? In fact, that would be a good question to ask police. Maybe I'll try and do that.
I know a lot of people will know the background in New Zealand gangs, especially where the mongrel mob came from. But ultimately, it came from Borstals. Now, that's the old-timey version of the fucking boot camp where these kids were brutalized and they were pushed on the outsides of society, so they formed their own society. Now, all I'm hearing is it might have a new marketing spin, but it's the same fucking thing again.
Well, you say it's the same fucking thing again. We were lucky enough to speak to a former Minister of Police, former National Party Minister, Chester Burrows, who sadly passed away. We didn't know this at the time, but when we spoke to Chester Burrows in June of last year, he was terminal with cancer and quite close to the end. Chester Burrows was the police minister and he was a local MP in Whanganui, whichever you like, when they tried last time, the national government, to ban gang patches. He came out saying some quite cutting things about National's pledge to ban gang patches. So we talked to him about it. And whilst he's still National through and through, and I'm going to play 2 short clips. In the second clip, I think you hear me say, we're not here to slag National, because he was like, I don't want to just slam National. I'm like, fair enough. He was still very honest about what happened when they tried to ban gang patches last time. So, Mr. Luxon, how are you going to do now what couldn't be done then and didn't make any difference? Let's hear Chester talk to us 14, 15 months ago about about banning gang patches. See what he had to say.
Well, the idea of banning the gang patches came out of Whanganui itself through a local bill drafted by the Whanganui District Council. A local bill is always supported by the local MP, whether or not he agrees with it. But I thought that it was going to do some good, and so I was happy to support it. And it was an interesting situation, really, because you may recall that the mayor at the time was Michael Laws.
I do.
Quite a controversial figure, and so pushed it very hard, and it went through Parliament and was successful in being passed, but then fell to bits after that, and I guess there are 2 or 3 reasons for that. I think the first thing people want to say is, well, did it work? And the interesting thing is that it probably didn't, but it didn't have to, in that there weren't a whole lot of people wearing gang patches in every suburb or up the CBD every day in any event. So no one noticed a significant dropping off in the people wearing gang patches because they weren't actually there in any event. And what happened was that the Hells Angels took a court action seeking a declaratory judgment around the legality of the legislation, because the legislation had been written in a way that said a number of specified areas listed by the district council would be the centre of this legislation in which gang patches would be banned. So that was various parks, various reserves, sports grounds, all of that sort of stuff, which was fine. But it was by some quirk of fate, it was within the legislation to draw a line around the whole of the Wanganui city area, all the residential area, and say, well, we're going to ban them all within this line. And that was obviously never really the intent of the bill when it went through the parliamentary process, but that's the way it came out, because it basically said, well, wherever the council want to ban them, they can ban them as long as they put them on a schedule. So the Hells Angels went to court and said, well, hang on, surely this can't be legal. And the court had a look at it and all the discussion in Parliament around the bill and what it was supposed to do and where people were supposed to be banned from wearing patches and all of that sort of stuff, and said, that's right, it's not legal to do that in the way that it's been done by the council, and pretty much stuffed it. And
there you go. So the last time they tried to do this, Chewy, they got told by the courts it wasn't legal to do. I do want to play you one more clip. It's only a short bit. But Chester Burrows, the reason we got a hold of him, he was quoted in the media talking about, banning gang patches makes a good headline, but not good policy. So I just want to play this bit for you as well. I kind of have to say it for him because he doesn't say the exact headline, but just have a bit of a listen. One more. Is it 60 seconds? Yeah, 60 seconds. Having a look at what Mr. Burrows had to say about why National was doing this. And one of the comments that often came up was, what is a gang? And I remember that there was conversations around insignia on shirts, etc. And there was people saying, well, that could be a bowling club. If you follow that criteria, that could be a bowling club. And one wonders, and in the article that we talked about that you're quoted in, you state that we've agreed we're not bashing National here, so I'm not trying to do that, but I'm just trying to reflect this idea of banning gang patches as, quote, a big headline. In other words, it gets the media and the people talking, but it has a negligible impact on crime. That's what you're quoted to have said in the Stuff article.
I mean, as far as as far as that sort of strategy or policy goes, it does have a negligible impact. And it could, of course, have a negative impact, because if everyone takes their patches off, you don't know who's who in the zoo.
Yeah.
So you don't need to take.
But it does make for good copy, is what you're saying. It makes good headlines in the newspaper. Just to also reflect on that. So there you go. That's all we're going to show from that for tonight. Chewy, thoughts?
These idiots never learn. Like, that's my thoughts. I was just looking for a photo, right? Because this has been a problem for decades, and there is not a single approach that has ever stopped it. This is a photo from where I grew up from. This is Timaru.
Yeah.
That's the Devil's Henchman riding through town. Now, you could get the same thing happen today in New Zealand. There are, by my count, I think about 33 main gangs in New Zealand. I think it's under 10,000 gang members. I think rightly Mongrel Mob gets the majority of the press. Now, you tell me what would be involved. Say this was a Mongrel Mob tangi procession. on the East Coast somewhere.
Yeah.
You know, the police know, well, the police have usually been notified that there's something happening, right? They'll know, they've got intelligence, or even the mongrel mob just came out and said, we're doing a tangi through town. You know, just as a courtesy type thing, we're going to let you know. Now, they know that the government wants to crack down on these sort of things of what they're wearing, so they don't tell the cops anymore.
Yep.
They keep it secret. And then the cops have to decide how they're going to enforce this.
And how many
It's a
cops are on
funeral-
duty? How many cops are on duty in Timaru? Maybe 2, 3?
How do you take the patches off these guys?
Yeah.
How do you break up a funeral procession that you had no advance warning about? You used to have warning, now you don't. Like, these are the things that Luxon hasn't thought about because he doesn't want to.
Mm.
Because the problem that they wanted to solve is not gangs. The problem that they wanted to solve is that we're not in government.
To get
So
elected.
now they've solved that problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
The next problem is 3 years down the line. They've got to get enough notable wins on the board in 3 years so they can solve this problem again.